So now this is part 3 of history of makeup. Now we'll see 1930s, 1900 century से हम लोग continue कर रहे हैं. Now the 30s, 20s तक हम लोगों ने देखा है. In the 1930s, the women started painting their lips in a more natural shape and making the mouth look wider rather than smaller. The foundations were natural colored and still powdered heavily. So 1930s में like towards 19 the trend change कैसे हुआ towards a little lighter makeup following the natural shapes. पहले क्या होता था, either it was too bold, the eyebrows and lips, or it was too thin. So now they were following the natural shapes and natural foundation follow होना शुरू हो गया. Rouge or blusher was applied lower under the cheekbones. Eyeshadow was blended from the eyelids up to the eyebrows in subtle smoky blue and browns. Lipstick was still red. The eyebrows were not too heavily plucked. So rouge or blusher कहाँ पे apply होता था? Applied in the lower under the cheekbone. Okay? अभी क्या हो गया है? Normal से लेके आगे Brazilian contouring and blushing is almost shifted और ऊपर shift हो गया है. Okay, if you follow the new trends. So see how trends keep changing and how you have to be in pace with all these trends. Okay. Eyeshadow was blended from the eyelids up to the eyebrows in subtle smoky blues and browns. Lipstick अभी भी red है. The choice of people for lipstick was still red. So 1900 में red lipstick follow किया जाता था. Eyebrows were not too heavily plucked. बहुत जो पतले पतले eyebrows का trend हम लोगों ने देखा है, तो वो trend यहाँ पे कम होता दिखाई गया. क्या हो गया? Not too heavily. Now the styles were set by Hollywood films. So as I said in the earlier part 2 में भी या first session से मैं बता रही हूँ, जो भी influencers हैं, आर्टिस्ट है, इन्फ्लुएंसर्स है, स्टार्स है, फिल्म स्टार्स है, और पहले तो राजा महाराजा जो थे, मतलब दीज वर द इन्फ्लुएंसर्स इन सोसाइटी. ओके, सो उनसे स्टाइल्स हमेशा डेपिक्ट होती है या फिर कॉपी की जाती है. हेयर वाज ब्लीच्ड, ब्लॉन्ड एंड वेव्ड tightly with irons, and nail varnish was used in both bright and dark colors. Like if you remember Karan Johar movies से chiffons and plain colors आए. Then with Dimple Kapadia set the trend of step cut, layer cut and coloring the hair. So ये ऐसे trends movie से बहुत आते हैं. Now because we are studying little Western history of makeup, then you will have to learn about blonde hair, waves and all. So nail varnish कैसे था? Both था, bright भी था and dark color भी थे. Okay, so nail paint came in picture. The men had short neat hairstyles and mustaches of different shape, but no beards. So दाढ़ी नहीं थी, but mustaches थे. So you can imagine if you're working on such kind of project जहाँ पे आपको ये era depict करना है 1900 में, 20s का, 30s का. So what all you need to know about it. The 40s. In 1940s, during the Second World War, less makeup was used in England simply because it was unavailable. Okay, so 40s में क्या था? Second World War था. Makeup कम क्यों यूज किया गया? क्योंकि मे बी अवेलेबिलिटी नहीं थी. अभी जैसे यूक्रेन वॉर के बाद पेट्रोल का प्रॉब्लम आया था, मे बी दे हैड प्रॉब्लम विद गेटिंग मेकअप in England. The one available item was lipstick, which was a symbol of an era. So you can see the face is quite natural. Base bhi zyada nahi hai, but lips are red. So red lipstick is something which is still trending. And if you go to places like Japan, Indonesia, then even Bangladesh and China, women love to wear red lipsticks. As well as red lipstick, the 40s look relied on natural looking eyebrows, brushed into shape and darkened. So natural looking bhi hai, but brushed hai properly. So maybe eyebrow brush was invented and darkened, thode dark the. Women's hair was usually worn long with more natural looking waves than in the previous 2 decades. So, kaise baal rakhte the? How ladies used to keep their hair more natural looking, more long, or natural waves. Okay, ये 2 decades में. Red lipstick था, natural looking eyebrows, properly brushed, shape darkened with wavy hair. Okay. In 1941, the film star Veronica Lake set a fashion with her long hair undulating in waves and undulating in waves and falling across one side of her face. So one side partition maybe was set by Veronica Lake. Okay, in 1941. Postage hair pieces were used for styling requiring curls or shinigans when dressing the hair. So अभी भी आजकल भी patches मिलने लगे हैं with clip-on techniques. Okay, so पहले postage, the patches used to come. So you can put blonde patches like how you put hair extensions. या किसी को forehead पे बाल एकदम बड़ा forehead है. So आजकल जो आप देखते हो ना market में, so ये नया नहीं है. It is since 1940s, 1950s. Wigs had been used for some time, but they were unobstructively named transformations. So wigs the, but naam kya tha? Transformations. Men had short hair still, but cultivated waves in using a comb and water. So jo 20s ke water waves hum log finger se pinch karke pani se banate na water waves, that these notes are talking about that era. They too were influenced by the film stars. In England, men wore mustaches, but in America, they were unusual, apart from the Clark Gable shape, which was sometimes seen. So Clark Gable shape was very common in India also. You can just Google for how the Clark Gable shape is. I think there's one picture of Clark Gable shape mustache, this one's. Okay, so this was about America also. Generally in the Swedish and these Britishers history, or the beauty references what we get, generally people what they do is they don't talk about the American trends much in the notes. So they talk more about more of the European cultures. Okay, so you won't find people talking more about the American beauty culture. The 50s. By the 1950s, makeup had become more natural looking, the products were of better quality, and there was more choice in colors than never before. So now we are, closer to like almost 70, 75 years back ka ye point hai. So it was more natural looking, better quality makeup, because awareness आया था कि lead से आपको life लोगों की कम हो रही थी. They were facing problems on their skin. So awareness was increased. The Hollywood musicals in glorious technicolor seemed to bring a fashion in brighter skin tones, and suntans become fashionable as people were able to travel freely after the war. A fake tan for men called man tan was popular. So you remember, you must have seen a lot of foreigners getting tanned on Goa beach, in Konkan beaches. You see a lot of foreigners coming in and getting tanned. Why do they do that? Because they love tanned skin. जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे एक अट्रैक्शन है फेयर स्किन का, वैसे वहां पे टैंड स्किन का एक अट्रैक्शन है. सो द टू रीजंस फॉर स्किन गेटिंग टैंड, वन इज अ फैशन स्टेटमेंट, एंड सेकेंडली टू इंक्रीज द पिगमेंट्स ऑन द लेवल ऑफ स्किन, जिससे कैंसर होने की संभावना कम है. सो यू शुड बी थैंकफुल इफ यू आर इंडियन, एंड इफ यू आर अ वीटी स्किन पर्सन लाइक मी, you should be thankful that we are safeguarded from the problems like cancer, skin cancer, because जो हमारे melanocyte cells है, if you have studied skin well, even in makeup, you should know that melanocyte cells क्या करते हैं, आपको जो टैनिंग होता है तभी जो ऊपर ट्रैवल करते हैं स्किन पे, they protect you from lot of hazards, which will give you some skin problems. Women had more choice in lipstick shades, and coral oranges and vivid pinks were much in demand. So you can see the evolution of makeup was quite a lot. Orange and vivid pinks, हम लोग कब से red lipsticks, black kajal and liner की बात कर रहे हैं. The eyes were not heavily made up. The look was an overall one without particular emphasis on one feature. Okay, so as we say, अगर eyes heavy करते हो तो lips muted रखो, lips heavy है तो eyes muted रखो. I think this trend started in early 1950s. In the mid 1950s, the Mandarin look arrived from Paris. The outer ends of the eyebrows were entirely plucked. The outer ends of the eyebrow entirely plucked, redrawn in an upward sweep. The eye lines were drawn upwards at the outer corner. See, this was the trend. So maybe it might come back. You must know this. Okay. Mandarin, I'm surprised, arrived from Paris because Mandarin is the language followed in Singapore and China. So we need to research more on this Mandarin. Look what arrived from Paris. But can you see the pin curls? जो हम लोग अभी भी follow करते हैं? Yeah. So this was from that era. The rest of the face had no color except the lips, overall an interesting effect. तो बाकी फेस को ज्यादा कलर नहीं था. पहले क्या बताया था? इतने सारे एरा में फेस वाज वाइट, either the eyebrows were less या eyebrows were more. Okay, but यहाँ पे interestingly क्या है? Not much color. The hairstyles become shorter, fuller, curlier. Blonde was still a popular color in American films, and the fashions were taken from current film stars Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, and Doris Day. So everybody knows these tycoons, ये कौन थे industry के, and they have created fashion statements with their clothing. उनके clothing जो थे, बाल, makeup, इस सब से इनके fashion statements आए हुए हैं. Okay, but blonde hair, curly and fuller hair, ironing and straightening is very much new to the makeup and hair industry. Audrey Hepburn set a fashion for a doe-eyed look with heavy black eye lines. So you can see the dove eye is what we do. The little extended liners connecting with the shadow were by the Audrey Hepburn. Shinigans and false hair were popular, and then in 1953, the Italian film star started a fashion called the Italian cut, a short, shaggy looking hairstyle. Okay, so everybody will name as per their country's style, and everybody will feel कि उन्होंने ये invent किया है. But you will see a lot of similarity all over the world. So if you have done your hairdressing, I've done my hairdressing quite a lot and quite in depth. The names just change from country to country, but the techniques don't change. The techniques might tweak a bit, but they don't change much, but just the names and the presentation changes. This was popular for a while and then gave way to the bouffant style, a thick page boy style, puffed out at the side and lacquered heavily to hold in place. Lacquer, आपके hair sprays में lacquer होता है. That's why आपके हाथ भी ऐसे थोड़े चिपचिपे कड़क हो जाते हैं. So a lot of styling products came into existence in after 1950. So you can see how beautifully your hair is styled. The men had shaven faces and short hair at the back. Typically, जो अभी भी चालू है वो back and sides with long hair at the front worn in tuft or wave like Elvis Presley. So if you know the Elvis Presley kind of lift, if you don't know Elvis Presley and the look, you should go and see it on Google. Crew cuts were also popular. A soldier cut, crew cut. Less conservative men wore beards and mustaches. So जो लोग बहुत conservative नहीं थे वो mustaches and beards रखते थे. Again, it's a very, very personal choice. 60s. It's 1960s saw a decade of rebellion in which the younger generation switched to a completely different appearance. There were many different fashions, each more bizarre than the last. Okay. So see, something which is new, people will find it bizarre. Like I remember when hair colors came, blue आया था, green आया था, लोगों को ऐसे लगता था ये पागल हो गए हैं, ये कोई पंछी है, कोई birds है, ऐसे color कर रहे हैं. But now everybody wants it and it's absorbed. So always remember, some change will always be resisted. Even if government puts some changes in taxation or something, people will resist and say it is a bizarre unless people get used to it. For women, eye makeup dominated the decade in 1962. The Egyptian look was fashionable with heavy black eye lines and strong eyebrows. In 1963, the lips seemed to disappear. No color was added to them and attention was focused on heavy eye makeup. So 1962 में देखो Egyptian look वापस आया था. अभी भी हम लोग Cidesco के जो कॉन्फ्रेंसेस अटेंड करते हैं, बॉडी पेंटिंग रहता है, लोग यही हिस्ट्री में से लुक्स को आगे लाते हैं और बॉडी पे करते हैं. We call it inspiration. So the inspiration in 1962 was the Egyptian look. But see the gradation of shadows. Okay, भले eyebrows तक shadow लगाई, but there is some gradation, color difference है. Yeah, in the blue also you can see 2 to 3 shades. But it's very light blue, a light blue, and a very dark glittery blue. This is called as gradation of color. In 1965, the eyebrows were played down as well as the lips. So eyebrows वापस क्या हो गए? Played down. Now, Sharmila Tagore दिखाई है Indian scenario of makeup, and the focus point was again movies. Our dadis, nannies, great grand nannies never did makeup. So our moms also didn't do too much of makeup, right? Like those who were born before 60s. My mom is born between 1940s, 50s. So she was never into makeup, just an eyebrow pencil and sometimes a lipstick. But you should see how it penetrates into the audience, how it penetrates into the general market. This was very theatrical look with heavy shading on the eye sockets and pale color, or none on the eyelids. So you can see if you're giving some retro look, ye aajkal shaadiyon mein bhi hota hai. They have a theme party, a retro look, maybe some Hollywood party. So आपको ऐसे clients मिल भी सकते हैं जिनको ये looks चाहिए. So keep practicing all this. The lips were pale. Sometimes they were painted with frosted pink or chalky looking color. What is this? So देखिए ये trend तो अभी भी है. Now, is it not like your cut crease? Is it not like your winged eyes? Okay, probably इसका थोड़ा angle change कर दिया तो Brazilian liner भी दिखेगा जो हम Cidesco में सिखाते हैं. Okay, see the lips muted. So lips क्या रखे? Tone down रखे. Face contouring is there. Okay, sometimes they were painted with frosty pink or chalky looking color. Rouge or blusher were not used, but shading was added under the cheekbones to add emphasis to the entire face shape. So contouring was there. Men grew their hair long and sideburns, mustaches and beards were fashionable. So you can just Google for the pictures like how men and women dressed themselves for hair and makeup. Women wore their hair in elaborate styles, big styles, very neatly done, lot of spray, good makeup, very elaborate, very much in detail, very much, showy, flamboyant. Hair pieces being used more generally to make their hair look larger and fuller. Stuffings were used. Stuffings भी use किए जाते थे. So ऐसे elaborate hairstyles बनती थी. आपने देखा है हमारे Indian movies में भी शर्मिला टैगोर and all had big hairstyles. आजकल तो किसी भी movie में आप ये नहीं देखोगे. A style called the beehive became popular. It became so large in size that it looked like a soldier's busby. Okay, so this was the trend. So hair pieces लगा के या फिर attachments लगा के बड़े-बड़े hairstyles बनाए जाते थे. Flower power became fashionable with young people dropping out and rebelling against the work. Okay, so क्या हो गया? Young people again will have their own style. Now ripped jeans is a style statement for these few years. Maybe people in the history would have never thought of it. Maybe 200 साल बाद कुछ और आएगा. We never know. We will become the history. Okay. So young people rebelled. वो उसके against थे कि no, we don't want this. We want our fashion. क्या था? They were called hippies and wore their hair very long and deliberately unkempt looking. That's why ऐसे अगर naturally बाल है and if you don't comb them for ages, people will say ये क्या hippie जैसे बाल बना के रखे. So hippies was a concept जो हमारे हिंदी movies में भी दिखाया था. हरे कृष्णा वो जो song है दम मारो दम song में hippies were shown. So see again how international trends reflect in our movies also. हमारे movies में भी international trends दिखाई देते हैं, right? The 70s, the flower power movement lasted in England until 1975. So 70s, I'm born 1977. So the era when I was born, eye makeup was slightly softer than 1960s. So see, makeup has come down so much with frosted eyeshadows and painted bottom lashes. So lashes were also painted. So ये 1970s के दरमियान initial early 70s में trend आया. A shiny doll-like look became fashionable with glossy pastel colors painted on lips, eyelids, and cheekbones. This is what people like now. glossy pastel colors and nice lifted cheekbones. It's still sustained for 75 years. But I see a lot of makeup artists doing that white chalk makeup and going back to the Egyptian era when limestone was used for makeup. But it is again a choice of you and your client. If your client is paying आपको वो सफेद makeup के लिए, please do that for your client. But set your trend. Okay, आपका trend बदलते मत रहो. Okay, the men still had long hair, though it was not popular in the workplace. In 1975, an aggressively unglamorous look called punk had swept away all traces of 60s. So punk look एक बहुत common था. Okay, so this was like a punk statement. Yeah, and it swept away the 60s. So see how something new comes and old goes. जैसे कैमरा था, पहले तो हम लोग कैमरा लेके घूमते थे, फिर वो डेवलपिंग के लिए देते थे रोल. अभी तो cameras are out because our iPhones have such good cameras. We no more need camera for our picnics or our traveling. So it will always happen. Something new will replace the old one. Heads were fully or partially shaved and safety pins were through the nose. Okay, so safety pins were put in the nose, ears also. I've seen people wearing safety pin in the ears. The look was deliberately hard and ugly. Punk style. Tattoos started to become fashionable and girls had pale faces with no makeup or heavily painted eye makeup. So tattoos came in picture, like tattoos for fashion statement picture mein aaye. Then heads partially or fully shaved the, कानों में safety pins, नाक में safety pins. Okay, little ugly, little punk, little what you can say, the exact word was rebellious looks, to show that you are rebellious. If you don't understand what is rebellious, you must pause the video, go back to Google, search in the dictionary what is rebellious. This is how you learn and how you grow your vocab. आपका इंग्लिश कैसे अच्छा होगा, ऐसे सुन के नए वर्ड्स जान के होगा. Yeah, so no makeup look भी आया था, but heavily painted eyes. So eyes were heavy. Okay, now let's see the 80s in the part 4. So I'll stop part 3, history of makeup, over here. We had enough run through in the 90s. Right from 1930s we started. Let me just go back. 30s we started and we ended somewhere here in the 1970s. Now in the next chapter, let me start the 1980s. See you all in the last, that is the 4th session of this chapter. I will be creating more videos on history of makeup. Bye for now.